star left tackle Joe Alt says he plans to play against the Vikings this week, which is a huge boost to the offense and gives the Chargers a much better chance on Thursday night.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 10 seasons, but this is our 8th year as a host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us your first listen. To make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Daniel, the Chargers going up against the Vikings on Thursday night, which means they have to be ready to defend the blitz. Brian Flores loves to send the blitz after the quarterbacks, and thankfully, Joe Alt is making his way back to help give some protection for Justin Herbert, and he desperately needs it. And of course, on defense, those pass rushers need to get to work, and they need to get after Carson Wentz, force him to make mistakes, because he has a propensity to do so. And of course, we have to wrap things up with our bold and game predictions.
And they only get bolder every week, but today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And David, today is our Keys for Success show, where we'd always be starting with our first key for success, but today we have better news to start with, because after 2 limited participation practices this week, one being a projected one, Joe Alt, when asked by the media if they will see him on Thursday night, said that that's the plan. It's not a guarantee, but it's as close as we're going to get to that at this point. We know that they put him through workouts last week, according to Fernando Ramirez. Vigorous workouts before the game last week to see if he could play in that one, in which he was doubtful. Now it seems like he could be back just in time for a game that it feels like the Chargers have to have. And David, I think when you look at just, he missed most of the last 4 games, right? Like, he missed the last 3 straight up, and then he was out in the first quarter against the Giants. The Chargers were 1-3. When he played, the Chargers were 3-0. I know it's not that simple, but I don't think that is, I don't want to undersell how big it is, even with a messy offensive line, how big it is to get this one piece back.
No, allow me to sell it for you. The Chargers left tackle right now is Austin Decklis. In 183 pass blocking snaps, he's given up 4 sacks, 9 hits, and 23 pressures. Joe Alt, in 142 pass blocking snaps, has only allowed 3 pressures and 1 sack. That was
Crazy.
it. That is a completely different situation here. We're going from a guy who is already is playing at the top of his craft, and a guy who was supposed to be a replacement level player. And you see the difference in the quality of play between these two guys. It's just night and day different. Joe Alt is a true difference maker, not only in pass protection, but also as a run blocker as well, with his unique length and his just tremendous size and strength. He is a weapon, and the Chargers need weapons on that offensive line. They don't have many of them. He is the tip of the spear for the Chargers offensive line. So to get him back, it is huge.
Yeah, and I think just for, the peace of mind for Justin Herbert, to just know, hey, I'm not just going to get destroyed on my blind side, right? Or that happens so much less, has to help him mentally. But yeah, there is also a chance Trey Pipkins is back this week. He's been limited both days this week. One of those obviously predictive. But either way, Bobby Hart actually wasn't that bad last week, kind of surprisingly. But I do think that this is so huge in the passing game, in the running game, just for what the Chargers can do offensively as a whole. And I think especially with the defense reeling the way it has, the Chargers needed a way to put up more points. Joe Alt, as an offensive lineman, is a way for them to put up more points. But let's get into our first key here, David. And I think it's really the biggest one, kind of the overwhelming one, which is just to have a great plan for what Brian Flores is going to bring to the table, / feed Keenan Allen, because that is what the game plan was last time these two teams went up against each other. It was blitz, 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 and that's what this team does, second in the league in blitz rate. But the Chargers, give Kellen Moore his flowers, had the perfect plan against it. The Chargers were able to outscore the Vikings in that game, and they will need to have a similar plan this time around.
No question about it. I mean, Brian Flores and his unit is trying to come after Justin Herbert with everything that they have, because that's just how they play defense. That's how they have to do it. So you got to know what your hot reads are. You got to know who, your quick receivers are, right? Like Lab McConkey and Keenan Allen, who obviously excelled, had one of the biggest games of his career against the Vikings to the tune of 200 plus receiving yards and a 50 plus yard passing touchdown in that game as well to Mike Williams. Just one of the better, just all around wide receiver performances that we've seen in a Chargers uniform, especially lately. That was a big time performance. But I also want to throw Rondé Gatson II in there as well. I just feel like you got to get the ball into the hands of these guys quickly and allow yourself to stay ahead of the sticks and keep that pass rush at bay. Also, obviously, this means identifying where you feel like your free rushers are coming from, making sure the communication is strong and on point between Bradley Bozeman and Justin Herbert. Make sure you have as many people covered up as possible so you can give Justin Herbert time to work.
Yeah, I mean, if the Chargers can just lose slower, right? Like, as long as they're not just giving up free blitzers and free rushers, unimpeded to the quarterback, they're going to have a good chance to put up some points in this game and to win this game. But I just think that when you're talking about a bad matchup for what has been a decimated Chargers offensive line, we're talking third in pressure rate at 42.9% according to True Media. Also third in sack percentage, getting sacks 9% of dropbacks on quarterbacks. Those are really good numbers, and they're second in the league in blitzing. So you're going to have to know who's coming and who's not coming. But getting Joe Alt and potentially Trey Pipkins back is huge in that. But you're right, it is the quick passing game. And the one thing that's different this time around is they also have Lab McConkey, who's a really good quick game specialist as well. So to have both of those guys, I know Brian Flores is going to be thinking about Keenan Allen a lot when they go into this matchup. At least you have other guys you feel good about taking up that mantle if they decide to kind of push their coverage that direction. But my other key here, David, is just pretty simple. A running back is going to have to step up. Who that's going to be, we'll see. But the Vikings this year are right next to the Chargers in the rankings, allowing 117 rushing yards per game. And it's not just even just about as a rusher, but like it's a pass protector, right? When you go up against a blitz-heavy team, who you have protecting the passer as far as the running back and him knowing which guy to go try to pick up is paramount. Like it's absolutely gigantic. And also, when you're going up against a team that pressures this much, you're also needed out of the backfield as a receiver too. So when you're looking at it, Hassan Haskins, according to Jim Harbaugh, doubtful for this game. Kamani Vidal is the only healthy running back on this roster. There's only two. One of them's doubtful for this game. They also have four guys on the practice squad now. You have Nyheim Hines, who's been elevated recently, Amar Johnson, who hasn't seen any action, Jarrett Patterson, who has been around but not really in the fold at all, and then Travion Williams, who they just signed this week. So somebody's going to have to step up, David, because running back, even if it's not just, pounding the rock and running the football, it's going to be such an important role for this offense this week.
Yeah, maybe this is where Nyheim Hines and his pass catching prowess shines in this game. He does have a track record of success catching the ball out of the backfield, several good seasons catching the football. And I think, that's very, very important. And I think my last key is start fast and finish in the red zone. The Chargers are 31st in red zone scoring percentage, and the Vikings are fourth best in opponent red zone touchdown percentage. But the numbers are grossly different at home versus on the road. At home, they're giving up touchdowns only 28.57% of the time. On the road, it's 60% of the time. So they are much worse at preventing touchdowns in the red zone on the away games. Yeah. So the Chargers absolutely have to capitalize on this. And if you start fast, you're able to get the Vikings out of what they want to do, and you get to impose your will on this game, start fast, and finish in the red zone with touchdowns.
Yeah, it's been, the one thing it feels like we have to point out every week. And at least there is some momentum. The Chargers did much better in the second half last week once they got into the red zone. But because they didn't start fast, it was too little, too late, because they weren't able to come back. It was 23-3 at halftime. So obviously hugely important going into this one. And it is a tough matchup for the Chargers offense, getting a Joe Alt back, especially with what they were able to do offensively in some parts of last week's game, especially in the second half with the offensive line they had out there. There's some hope, especially at home especially hungry after getting embarrassed last weekend. But we do have to get into the keys for success on the defensive side, and it starts with the pass rush showing up because it has been pitifully bad over the last several weeks. Khalil Mack's back. They're going to need a lot more of him, but it's going to take more than that. It's going to need a group effort. We're getting into all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, prices jumping up at checkout. It can be very frustrating, and that's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, which I love. So the price that you see when you're looking at your tickets is the price that you're actually going to pay. Me and David have both used Gametime before and have loved it. But crazy thing is, if you guys don't have plans for this upcoming game in prime time on Thursday night, you can still get in for $30. Tickets as low as $30 for this game. That is insanely low. Plus, they're doing the throwback all navies, which should give them a 3-point advantage in this one. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go download Gametime today. David, we do have to get into here our defensive keys for success. We know now it's going to be Carson Wentz on the other side of things, which I do think is an advantage, at least to know. I was kind of hoping we'd see J.J. McCarthy versus Jim Harbaugh just for the storylines. Plus, because,
for sure.
I mean, outside of, one big fourth quarter comeback
For the plot.
in week one, like, it wasn't going great for him before he got injured. So I think that would have been a huge advantage to the Chargers. But also, Carson Wentz is a backup for a reason. I do think that you see it much more often, though, when he gets bothered. And David, this is a guy that he will take some sacks. Like, he will hold on to the football if you don't make it easy for him. If you make it easy for him, he can deliver it just as well as any other, mid quarterback in the league. So I do think, when you saw him last week, he threw a really bad pick, hit while he threw it the first one. And then after he started getting affected by that, he threw another just kind of Hail Mary throw and got picked off again. The problem is the Chargers only have 4 sacks total in their past 3 games. The 2 losses that they've had, they've only had 1 sack in each game. Non-Thule edge rushers have combined for 3.5 sacks this year. Bud Dupree still waiting on number 1, buddy. That one's pretty rough. The good news is Pro Bowl right tackle Brian O'Neill hasn't practiced this week, did play every snap and didn't leave the last game in his first game back from an MCL sprain, but hasn't practiced at all this week, so maybe at least limited to some way. And honestly, for the offensive line that they have, and knowing that some of these guys have missed some time, through 6 games, the Vikings have allowed 23 sacks. That's almost 4 sacks per game. Their 10.9 sack allowed percentage is tied for 3rd worst in the NFL. The Chargers pass rush has to show up. There's a reason you're not seeing picks. There's a reason you're seeing the Chargers not being able to get off the field. A lot of it ties into this pass rush, David, because the pass rush gets the defensive backs paid. It has to show up Thursday night.
It definitely does, and I think we should expect to see Khalil Mack on the field a few more times than just 12 snaps as he did in his first game back. So I expect to see a whole lot more of the future first ballot Hall of Famer, and I think they absolutely need it. They need more of him on that outside, on that edge, getting after the quarterback, getting pressure in his face, because that leads into my next key, which is force a couple of turnovers. And Carson Wentz will give it to you. He's thrown 4 interceptions in 4 games, 2 interceptions in each of the 2 losses that he has had starting quarterback for the Vikings this year. So he will take unnecessary chances. The Chargers have to make him pay when he does that. Also, the Vikings have fumbled 11 times and they have lost 4 of them. So punch the ball out. Look for any way that you can to get that ball back to Justin Herbert with a short field. It is important that you look for those opportunities because the Vikings have shown there will be some in this game.
Yeah, and the Chargers, this will come up later for part of the bowl predictions, but they still only have 1 forced fumble that they've recovered through 7 games. So that's something they have to get better at in general. I would go with my next key here being a real theme over the last few weeks. Don't fall for the eye candy. That's it. Like the last several opponents the Chargers have faced, Kevin O'Connell is going to do what those guys did. He's going to try to scheme up easy looks for his playmakers. You have to respond. I mean, you're talking about 2 plays in the flat last week to Tyler Warren that both go for 25 plus. Man, if it was only that easy for Justin Herbert. You're talking about Dante Jackson. I saw somebody post a video, maybe it was Stephen Hagwin posted a video of Dante Jackson biting on a route that was shorter on that 48-yard throw last week to Alec Pierce on 3rd and 17. Guys trying to make a play, but leaving their responsibility. Then you also have Michael Pittman, who grows across the formation last week on a 2-point conversion, and much like Darren Waller was a couple weeks ago, finds himself on a very important play, standing alone in the end zone, right? The Commanders did this well and diced up their pass defense. Also hit them with the running game too, pulling guys to the opposite side to hit them with counters, hit them with traps going the other way. Every team the Chargers have played the last few weeks, I mean, man, you could even say some of that about Brian Dable, has been able to trick this Jesse Minter defense to get easy chunk plays, including 6 untouched rushing touchdowns over the last 3 weeks. That's insane. It can't happen. The Chargers have to be better. They have to be more disciplined. If you've heard Khalil Mack and Derwin James talking, they know they have to do it. But man, Kevin O'Connell can get you Carson Wentz or not. If you're not on your cues, right, P's and Q's, and you're not disciplined and you're not watching film to see what they're going to try to do to you, it's going to be another long week.
It sure is, without a doubt. And I think that, really leads nicely into what I was going to say, which is win on first down. Win on first down. Create a negative or a minimal gain on first down that sets you up to get the Vikings offense off of the football field. And the Vikings will help you in that too. The Vikings are converting only 34.25% of their third downs, which is 26th worst in the league. And they're even worse on the road. So if you're able to win on first down and make them have to go earn a 3rd and long, then you can let your pass rushers go eat and you can get them off of the football field. But too often, the last few games, opposing offenses have gotten 6, 7, 8 yards on first down, and that has to stop starting in this game on Thursday night.
And not only that, David, they will help you out in another way because they are 25th in the NFL or 24th in the NFL so far this year, averaging 7.8 penalties per game. And they had those penalties. You have to take advantage of that and make them pay for it. My last one here, I just think that the cornerback group has to step up in a big way this week. And it might seem like I'm blaming them. They're taking a lot of heat. I honestly think the scheme is probably more to play than, or more to blame, honestly, the last few weeks than just guys getting beat one-on-one, right? And not being able to be there at the catch point to break some passes up. But Justin Jefferson is quarterback proof, right? It doesn't matter if it's Carson Wentz, 110.3 yards per game over his last 3 games. You also have Jordan Addison, who has 114 plus receiving yards in 2 of the last 3 games. This is the best duo that you have gone up against this season and one of the best that you're going to play against all year. You have the A.J. Browns and the Devontae Smiths of the world, but this is the top of the top. Maybe the best wide receiver in the league. Maybe one of the best wide receiver 2 in the league. And you're talking about a cornerback group that has Tariq Still and Dante Jackson, who have still only combined for 1 pick between the 2 of them this year. Wentz, to your point, has thrown 4 picks in the last 3 games. I think this group, it has a tough matchup. They have to step up.
Yeah, they do. And not only in pass defense and pass coverage, but also in run defense as well, which, is totally. My last thing is you got to secure your edges in the run defense. And that includes the corners on those crack replaces on the outside, making sure that they are getting these ball carriers on the ground. And also just the edge defenders. If you're going to wear that Navy uniform on Thursday and you want to bring that image of physicality, then you better show it on the football field. And you go knock some heads and absolutely establish the style of defense that you're going to play against this team from the very beginning. And you got to bring it for 60 minutes because the Eagles definitely struggled at defending their edges against the Vikings, and the Vikings exploited that. They started running towards the middle, then they started finding success on the outsides, and they just kept at that. You better believe that they're going to try to do the same thing to the Chargers defense, which just got shredded by the Indianapolis Colts and Jonathan Taylor, especially on the edges like every single other team has. fix the problem, and physicality has to be a big part of it.
Yeah, it's physicality. It's the edges like you talked about. And, Khalil Mack wasn't on the field for a lot of run plays last year, basically a pass rush specialist. They need him out there to up that physicality. And also, don't let this Vikings team be the one that dominates you on the ground. This is not what you faced last week in the Colts.
No.
It's not what the Commanders were when they dominated you. This is not one of the best running teams in the NFL. They're near the bottom third of the NFL in most rushing metrics. They could get Aaron Jones back, which would be a big boost. But man, if there's a chance to get right, this is not an overpowered running attack. You have to be so much better against it this week. But we still have our bold and our game predictions to get into, and maybe Khalil Mack will have something to say about that in a big game on Thursday night. We're getting into all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance. You can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
I also need to tell you guys that the NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than FanDuel if you guys want to get some action on the games, because no matter what game you're watching, FanDuel has all the bets that you want to place in. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. If you want to build a parlay, you can. If you want to do player props, you can. And even follow the live lines during games if you want to do live in-game betting. It makes football watching even more exciting, especially when you have a little bit something riding on the action. So whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. The odds are moving in the Chargers' favor on Thursday night. The Chargers opened up as 2.5-point favorites. I don't know if it's the Carson Wentz news. I don't know if it's the Joe Alt news. But right now, the Chargers are currently 3-point favorites to win against the Vikings. And not a must-win game, but a hugely pivotal game on Thursday night. And you can get in on that action on FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the app today and get started. David, it's time to let the everydayers get in on this action and get into our bold and our game predictions. But thank you, everyone, for contributing. And thank you also for making us your first listen. If you need a second listen, make sure to check out Locked On NFL, where you have Tyler the Madman rolling in the morning, and my guy Tony Wiggins later on covering everything around the league on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast from. David, I think we all wish we saw a little bit more of Khalil Mack last week. I think we will, especially after his words, see a little bit more of him this week. And we know this man can get some sacks and bunches. Maybe it's his time on Thursday night.
Daniel, David, I see a bold prediction for Thursday. Mack attack is back. I'm going Khalil Mack, 3.5 sacks, and a forced fumble. Charger defense will finally step up and slow down the Vikings. They win 27-17.
I like this one a lot because, like I said, we've seen it come in bunches for Khalil Mack. Hearing from him this week was, I think, pretty much as close as you're going to see him be a vocal leader and kind of call out his team. I know he is a leader by action. I know he is going to want to follow up the words that he said by having a big game on Thursday night, and I wouldn't put him past him, even against, some strong tackles, to have a really good performance.
Yeah, some really good tackles. I mean, Christian Darrisaw has allowed only 7 pressures the entire season, which is insane. And Brian O'Neill, guy we talked about earlier, the right tackle, 4 pressures, no sacks, and 144 pass blocking snaps. So both of those guys are fantastic. But, even when you're, that good, if you're put in those situations where you're going to be under duress in those 3rd and long situations, and you have to try to figure out where these guys are coming from, like even the best are going to have trouble in those situations. So it's up to the Chargers to put them and in those stressful situations to have to try to figure out how to keep Carson Wentz upright. And I like that. And I think they're going to be able to do it in this game.
And that's the thing. The pressures might not be due to the tackles, right? But guess what? Quarterbacks can cause some pressures as well. And Carson Wentz can hold on to the football at times. But they need to do it because they need to force more hurry throws and affect him. And this comes from Jalen May, who says that defense gets back on track with 2 takeaways, one being with Tarheeb still getting his first pick of the year. What do you think of that one, David?
I love it. And the Chargers desperately need to win the turnover battle. It is quite simply the difference between wins and losses. They lost the turnover battle against the Colts. They lost the game. They lost the turnover battle to the Commanders. They lost the game. They lost the turnover battle to the Giants. They lost the game. That's all 3 of their losses. So it is imperative that they win the turnover battle. And yeah, I want to see the ball hawk go out there and get his hands on a football. And fortunately, there's a quarterback he's going to be playing up against that should give him some opportunities to do that.
Yeah, and like the thing is, I don't think he's been bad. Like obviously after getting 4 picks as a rookie, you'd like to in the first 7 games, see him get one. But it's not as if he has been bad. I mean, he's been a good cover corner. The tackling outside of last week had been a lot better, but he does still lead this team in pass breakups. And again, the Chargers have only forced and recovered 1 fumble in 7 games so far this year. But let's switch things over to the offensive side, Dave. We talked about Keenan Allen's performance last matchup against the Vikings. Don to the T says KA13 continues where he left off in this matchup against Minnesota, goes 15 for 179 yards and 2 touchdowns. We win 28-17. BTFU. David, I don't know if he's getting that again, but I mean, I wouldn't put it past him to have a big game.
Yeah, I'm sure that Brian Flores sees Keenan Allen in his nightmares after what he did to him in that last game. But also that means they're not going to let him have those many opportunities to try to get open that as many times as he did last time. But they also are going to have more mouths to feed on the offense. I just don't think it's going to be so singularly focused to Keenan Allen. I know Quentin Johnston's going to get his opportunities, whether people like it or not. Ladd McConkey is going to get plenty of opportunities, and he absolutely should. I think it is going to be the Keenan and Ladd show if things turn out the way I feel like they're going to on Thursday night.
And honestly, man, with his yak ability, not a bad idea to give QJ some hot routes as well. I mean, that, he's a guy that can create after the catch. He was a rookie when these two teams faced each other the last time. Maybe he gets more involved. But yeah, I mean, I hope there's some way they can do like a fake, pass out to Keenan Allen, a fake double pass to Keenan Allen and work that in somewhere. Because it's like, hey, we saw this, he's going deep, and then maybe turn that into some sort of screenplay or something. But who knows what we're going to see. This one we have here from Dez says, our first time scoring over 30 points this season. What happened on Thursday night? Vikings tied with the Packers as the 11th best defense in the league, 20.8 points allowed. But the Chargers did put up 26 against KC, who's 3rd best defense in the league, and 23 versus Denver, who's the 4th best defense in the league, points per game wise. You're going to have to wait until our game predictions to see if we think that is going to happen this week. Let's go to our bold predictions. David, where are you going this week?
Yeah, I think a guy who is a leader of this team, a guy who I think needs to show up in this game, and I feel like is going to show up in this game. He's the vocal leader of the team and of the defense. Derwin James, I feel like, has to show up in this game and remind everybody how really dominant of a player he is. And I think he's going to do that after that embarrassing loss where he said that they played like, they played like
the S word.
Yeah. And it wasn't and he's absolutely right. And I know that he took that personally. And I think that shows itself in this game. 12 tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble in this game. I feel like Derwin James is going to make his mark.
I love it. And I mean, like we talked about, if you missed yesterday's show, that was a big focus, is the stars having to show up. I'm going more team oriented this week. My bold prediction, the Chargers offense goes perfect in the red zone this week. Justin Herbert threw an interception. He never does that in the red zone. It had been like 8,000 days since the last time he had done it before last week. that's a fluke, but I don't think it's a fluke as the Chargers at least going 3 out of 3 in the second half in the red zone when they got there. I say that trend continues and the Chargers score on all of their red zone trips, which would just be gigantic for
I love
them. But let's get into the game prediction here, David. So hard to trust the Chargers offensive line and their offense, but more than that, so hard to trust their defense, especially when you know maybe not the quarterback, but the offensive skill players that they're going up against this weekend with Jordan Addison, obviously Justin Jefferson, and TJ Hawkinson. Do the Chargers find a way on Thursday night in the Navies to pull off a gigantic win?
Yeah, I like this matchup a whole lot more for the Chargers than I did against the Colts. I feel a lot more comfortable with their ability to move the ball and for them to get some stops against an offense that, you know, even with the brilliance of Justin Jefferson and you know, Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson, I'm not as scared about their ability to put up that many points. They're just not on the same level. They're not even close. So with that being said, I have the Chargers getting back on track, getting back in the win column, and winning this game 24-17.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I think, you know, the Chargers, maybe it is a slightly better matchup for them this week. I think it's just kind of a trade because obviously you're getting an offense that doesn't scare you as much as far as putting up points and being a well-oiled machine like we saw last week with the Colts, but a defense that's much better than the one the Colts put out there last week as well. So I do think it'll be lower scoring last week to a certain degree, but I have a really tough time with this. It's really hard to trust the Chargers defense right now. Since Joe Alt is playing, I'm going to pick the Chargers to win 24-20. So both have them getting 24 again. I think it would be a much more solid 24 than the one they got last week. You'd have to earn it a little bit more. But the Chargers in the Navies, they never won in their last Navy throwbacks that they were using before this. But fortunately, I think the Yellows have now taken that mantle, 1-0 in the Yellows, which I'm not a huge fan of, is just jersey-wise, yellow on yellow.
Yeah,
on yellow.
Yeah.
But as soon as those helmets come out, man, like you go on the Chargers app, you just feel it right now. And like that is the era that, made me a Chargers fan and kind of solidified my Chargers fandom and where all my favorite players were playing in with LT and Rivers and Gates and Sean Merriman and all those guys. Can't lose in the Navies. Can't lose to Carson Wentz. I have the Chargers pulling out a gigantic win, and we'll be here with you guys Thursday night to talk about hopefully a victory post-game show. So make sure you don't miss that. And also tomorrow's crossover show. We're going to have 2 shows tomorrow. We're going to have the crossover in the morning, Locked On Chargers, Locked On Vikings with Luke Braun. And also, you're going to have the live show after the game. So make sure you guys are around for that by following us and subscribing wherever you get your podcast from, and also following and subscribing to the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and finding the show every day on our social media at Locked On LIC on Twitter, at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. But big time game coming up tomorrow. We can't wait to watch it and be back here with you guys to talk about hopefully the Chargers getting back on track with the Titans next week. That would be huge. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.